see myself and see the people.
Outside the circle of illusion, a masquerade. Who do they think they're fooling? With all the chaos and confusion, there's a need for isolation, for separation, to keep us in emotion. This is a life devotion. No outside distractions. We are the projections of our descendants. The pride of man is really changing. A brighter day, a brighter way. To the future.
How do we resolve it? Regardless what cause it, I solve it. There's a brighter way, there are brighter days. Bro, there's brighter ways. Stand and fight today. I won't give up. Keep looking up. Do whatever it takes. For my family's sake. Don't care what they say. There's a brighter way. And a brighter day. Don't make the mistake. And fade away. Be more than great. And more than faith. Be on your way.
There's no other way to the future. A brighter day, a brighter way. To the future. A brighter day.
All right. You live another day. High and Mighty Talks with me, Newton Mencares. Good evening. Got a lot to touch on. Yeah, I know we started a little bit late, but everything happens for a reason. Everything is not really late. It's on the time it's supposed to start. So let's get into this. I'm your host, the intellectual Newton Mencares, and this is High and Mighty Talks with me, Newton Mencares. Before I start, I want to go and get into this in the name of Amen, the Supreme, the All-Powerful, the one and only true Lord. In Amen we trust, in Amen we think, and in Amen we continue forward forever. Amen. I got a lot of topics I want to touch on. I know the last time y'all seen me, I had on my feathered head crown, my indigenous American feathered head crown. That's what we refer to it as, the indigenous or Indian American head crown, because the American indigenous culture is our culture. And I've been saying this for the longest time. We should not allow anybody to punk us out of our culture. We should not allow anybody to sit here and tell us who and what we are when we know the truth. We don't need to seek validation from anybody. And, I'm going to, address that sense of validation. I got a few things I'm going to talk about. And, is it cold? Can you give me ice? The ice? Ice water, my lovely wife. Put some water in the cup and give me some ice water. Thank you, please. And my coffee, we're going to get into this. Got the high. And of course, I'm the mighty. And you all are the mighty for listening to me. Because, like I said, this is the little show that could. Like the little engine that could. This is the little show that could. And we're going to. We're going to continue to go. So, first thing I'm going to discuss is why the immigrants are granted rights and not the indigenous. That was one of my topics I wanted to discuss. Y'all all aware, and I've been saying this, I'm going to say it again. I'll sound, at the risk of sounding like a broken record, I really don't care. But you do know the reason why there is racism against so-called, quote-unquote, black people in this society is because we are the indigenous people. The term black is really a code word for indigenous. Now, everybody other than us is immigrants here, or are immigrants here in America. From the Caucasians to the Asians to the East Indians, Arabs, all those people, the so-called East Indians or the Hindus, these people are all immigrants. Everybody, the Africans that came here, all of these people are immigrants, except us. We are not African. I said this before and I'll say it again. I don't care how the pan-africanists feel about it. I don't care how the Caucasian supremacists, the white degenerates, or the white degenerates who back them, so-called white supremacists feel about that, because they love to push this line that we so-called black people here in the Americas, who were born in the Americas, who families go back past slavery, who've been here in the Americas, ethnic Americans, or as we say, the ethnic indigenous Americans, that we somehow came here by way of some slave ships from Africa, and that's false. That's being debunked all over the place, thanks to credible sources, historians like Dane Calloway. Shout out to Dane Calloway. Shout out to Karimio Ahawa. Sorry, I keep butchering your name, brother. Camario, sister Enra Vanzetta, who's on our team, the Ethnic American channel. Check out her documentaries, her mini documentaries. She does excellent work, and so many more. Thousand go-aheads. There's so many more I can just name, who are giving the historical background, the real historical background, from books, from papers, from things like that, from that period in 16, 17, 1800s, and going back about who the true American indigenous people are, which is us, so-called black people here in America. We didn't come by way of no slave ships. It was our people were already here in the Americas. Before white people got here, we were here. When they got off them ships or boats or whatever they came, when they got off the boats, they saw us here in the Americas. They didn't see no Mongoloid Indians. They saw us. And even the so-called Mongoloid Indians, who they show you as the so-called Native Americans, those people are Asians who crossed the Bering Strait and came over here to America and mixed in with our people. The only American indigenous culture they got is what they picked up from us. I need our people to stop with this black Indian nonsense. We're not black Indians. Because to say that we are black Indians is to say that we are the black version of the Mongoloids. We came before them. They're using our culture. Those people are Asians. And nobody's not even fighting against this anymore. They had a hard time admitting that they, like the Mexicans, a lot of your Latinos, your Mexicans, and those people who are currently in those areas are really the descendants of those people who crossed the Bering Straits, the Eskimos and all those people. Those people are of Asian stock. They are not Native or ethnic American. The only indigenous Americans or ethnic Americans here is so-called black Americans. They are not African. So this, the Caucasian elites who run the society, the Caucasian rulership that's currently in the society, set themselves up here in the Americas as an enterprise, United States enterprise here in North America. And they have a policy as immigrants, as an immigrant or foreign company, which is what the United States is. It's an immigrant foreign European company or corporation set up here in the Americas. And in the Americas, there is an indigenous people known as American Indigenous or American Indians. You know, the copper-colored people, 1828 Merriam-Webster Dictionary, the copper-colored people who were here in the Americas, who were referred to as Americans, from their word, from the Mayan word, I forgot how to pronounce it. Amaraka. Those people were referring to themselves as Americans or Americans before Caucasians came here, before the Mongoloid Indians crossed the Bering Straits and came here. So those people were referred to themselves as that. and the Caucasians and the people who came and Spanish known came and heard people referring to themselves throughout the Americas as Americans or Americana. Now, my wife hands me my coffee over my laptop. Thank you very much, dear. One of my wives, she told her to hand it around. You know, not messing with it. Anyway, so never hand people coffee over laptops, you know, because you're asking for a disaster to take place. But anyway, so the problem is not black and white. Again, white is just a euphemism for immigrants. Anybody could be white in America. White has nothing to do with Caucasian. It has nothing to do with skin color. White is a classification, a status classification here in America, just like black is. Black and white are status classifications. In other words, that's a signal to the government, the people who are allowed to claim white as a status classification. You got people who got dark skin, dark as mine, who are allowed to claim themselves as white on censuses and things like that. A lot of the people from the Middle East and things like that, Arabs who so-called black Arabs, some of them come here and they are declared white. A lot of the so-called black Egyptians, they'll come here. A lot of them are classified as white. A lot of your Latinos and Mexicans are classified as white. Okay? They're not classified. There's no Latino. There's no yellow section. That's why if it was about color, you would have people being called yellow Americans like the Asians, or you have people being called, you know, red Americans. There's only black and white. Black is the indigenous people. White are the immigrants. It has nothing to do with skin color. So whenever you hear these clowns talking about my black skin or I'm getting discriminated against because of my black skin, there is no black skin. This is copper colored skin. Open your eyes and look. Don't let these people play these games on you. Don't let these people play these mind games on you that their Caucasian elitist bosses have had them play on our people. And I did say that right. They're Caucasian elitist bosses, right, who got these pan-Africans, these so-called pro-blacks who are promoting lies to our people to cover up our American indigenous roots here in the Americas, that we are the only real indigenous ethnic Americans in this country. We're the only ones. There are no other indigenous people here but us. And that can be factually proven. We are the descendants of the Olmecs, the Aztec, the Inca, the Mayan, and the early American indigenous tribes that came into America through the Mayans. And we split up into different tribes, and the Mongoloid Indians followed us into America. That is what really happened. The only ones who had land taken away from them was our people, not the Mongoloid Indians. Talked about that before, but I had to reiterate that. So the immigrants are granted all of the rights as immigrants in this society. That's why you don't see the police bothering the Asians. You don't see the police bothering the Arabs. You don't see the police bothering certain people who are classified and allowed to be white. You don't see them bothering those people. You don't see them shooting those people. See, because the police follow the policy of the corporation. Remember, I said this before on my broadcast. There's no law enforcement community here. There's policy enforcement. That's why you have police officers. From the word police, you get the word policy. The policies are followed by corporations, not by countries. This is a corporation. The United States is a corporation, and there are policy officers, or what they call police officers, who enforce the policies of the corporation. They have nothing to do with law enforcement. This is not a law enforcement. These are not law enforcement officers. They're policy enforcement officers. And their policy is to write tickets, detain the indigenous people, lock up the indigenous people known as black people. You see, jail them, you know, do whatever you want with them. But the people who are immigrants, you treat them with kid gloves. You treat them more according to the Constitution. Those are the only people that have real constitutional rights. The indigenous so-called black peoples of this country, the American indigenous Indians of this country, so-called blacks, the copper-colored races, we don't really have no constitutional rights here. We really don't. Because if we did, you wouldn't see police shooting us down. You wouldn't see police violating our constitutional rights. You wouldn't see these police being able to do whatever they want and then have these police departments back them up like what they're doing is right. They have whole body cam footage of them violating our so-called constitutional rights. What happened to that? Answer, because we don't have none, because we indigenous. And that has nothing to do with skin color, nothing. So stop with this, oh, they're doing this to me because I'm black. Why are you doing this because of my black skin? No, your black status as indigenous people is why they violate you. You see, the immigrants don't have to acknowledge any rights of the indigenous people, as in the Dred Scott thing, the decision with the Dred Scott thing back in 1857. It said that a white man is not bound to acknowledge or uphold the rights of, or acknowledge the rights of a so-called Negro, or whatever, however they put it. But that was just them saying that an immigrant, which is what all these people are who came here from the Caucasian, George Washington, your founding fathers of the United States government, they do not acknowledge the indigenous people as part of the United States corporation, which sets up a constitution and a charter for their people. We are outside of the Constitution. That's why they keep violating us. That's why Joe Biden said, oh, you know, they don't have to, when they arrest you now, they don't have to, I think he said, came up with something that said they don't have to Miranda you no more. They don't have to give you your Miranda rights. Who do you think that's for? Who do you think that's for? Anyway, like I said, the immigrants are granted rights. If you look in the word immigrant, you see the word grant. You look at the word immigrant, you see the word grant in there. These people are granted certain privileges as being from someplace else. See, we're not granted certain privileges because we are from America. We're not from someplace else. Like I said before, we were really Africans, we wouldn't have these problems. Even the so-called Africans that come here, you don't rarely see them have problems with the police. Only time, like I told you, they'll have problems with the police if they believe, if they look too much like us, then they're gonna have problems with the police. But if they look like the tribal, you know, the tribal Africans, you know, the stereotypical tribal Africans, and they have those African names, they ain't gonna bother them people. The police don't bother them. Only time that may happen is if they mistake them for one of us, as one of the ethnic people, as one of the indigenous people. And I want to say this while I'm on that: stop referring to yourselves as Native Americans, bronze, copper-colored people, the bronze people, the copper-colored people, the indigenous people. Please stop referring to yourself as Native Americans. That is a title that came about through the Caucasians, the Europeans, who decided to take American indigenous culture and hand it to another group of people, your Mongoloid Indians. And these are the people who are now living on reservations, getting money allotted to them. The people that got the casinos where these corporations are, and they basically in bed with these fake pretendians who claim to be tribal leaders. Most of these guys are Caucasian now. You know, it was a time when they let on the doors where they let these Caucasians sign on and be so-called declare themselves Indians, and this is how they got a lot of land and territory. Some of them married in with the Indians, like in the Mongoloids, and mixed they see. So now if you go on the Indian reservation, you see a bunch of Caucasians there, man, and Asians. That's what's on the Indian reservations right now. And they get hit off with money every year, our tax money. And the American Indians get to be called Negroes, the real American Indians. If you're going to make a reference to yourself anyway, in any form, make reference to yourself, as American indigenous people or ethnic American. Don't make reference to yourself as Native American. That has nothing to do with us. And I wish you so-called black Indians stop trying to kiss up to these Mongoloid Indians and try to get them to accept you as they BS tribes. Okay? And today BS tribes, y'all gotta get paperwork and you gotta do all this nonsense and try to prove something to these people. You don't need these people to validate you. Why are you going to a bunch of phonies and imposters and trying to get them to validate you? Why are you asking them to join their tribes? You see, y'all gotta stop with that black mindset of, how can I be down mindset. Y'all do that with the so-called white man. You do that with these Mongoloid Indians who are not even really Indians. Bunch of pretendians. You do that with everybody. You do that with the Muslims when you go and join Islam. Y'all always got this how can I be down energy on you where you looking for validation from a bunch of people who are not legitimate any damn way. Stop that. There's no black Indians. It's just the Indians, the American indigenous people, the copper-colored people. That's us. And it's time for us to stand up for that. So next one, this ridiculousness about so-called black Americans moving to Africa. You know, it's a sip of water, so this. So you got these that's the thing now. You got these people who are supposedly trying to escape racism by moving to Africa, Ghana, and certain places, right? They trying to escape racism and move to Ghana and all these other places. And I'm like, why are we leaving our homeland? America is our home. Do y'all really think that going to Africa is going to make your life somehow better because you see people who skin dark like yours, people who supposedly are empowered? You do know all of those so-called African countries in the continent of Africa, a lot of those are under the control of Caucasians. If you go to those countries, you see who's living good over there and who's not, and who's living, you know, bad. You'll have certain black people over there who'll be the front people, will be the front presidents and stuff like that. But then you see the people who coming over there, the tourists, the people who coming over there to spread their degeneracy. Like this story that was just in the guy Black Authority, he brought it about these degenerates, these white degenerates that went over here from America into Africa, and they started molesting the children, doing all kinds of stuff, freaking off with the children over there. And now I think they in Uganda or someplace, and they told them about putting them people in jail for life or putting them to death. They over there now. You know the Europeans gonna swoop in and try to save them, but these are Caucasian Americans who went over into Africa to take their degeneracy and to abuse the children over there. You see, this is what they doing. They're not happy with being here in America. They got to go take that nonsense to Africa. Mama Africa, who y'all claim when y'all go to Africa, things gonna be so good for you when you go to Mama Africa, right? The same filth that's over here, that came over here, the same filth that came from Europe, is the same filth that's in Africa right now, causing chaos and confusion. Okay? Same filth. Okay, the same plagues that's over in America that came here to America and caused all this chaos and confusion and war and bloodshed is the same filth that's over there in Africa today. You see? So, miss me with the, oh, we going to Africa and make things better. Look at how a lot of those people live over there in Africa. Look how a lot of those people live. Now, unless you got a whole lot of money, and that's not even guaranteed, you're not going to just go over there and be middle class and live over there with them. Because first of all, they're looking at you like Americans. They're looking at you like interlopers on their continent, as they say, or in their country. They're looking at you as people who are not a part of their culture. See, with them, it's a culture thing. It's not a race thing. Because they'll say, oh, you know, so what? You got dark skin like me. You're a so-called black person. You ain't this. You ain't Nigerian. You ain't Igbo. You ain't this. You ain't this. You're not of this culture or this tribe. That's how they look at it. That's how they look at it. And those people will be the first ones to rob from you, steal from you, cut your throat, take whatever you got. They ain't rolling out no damn red carpet for you. They roll out the red carpet for the so-called white man and when they come over there, because a lot of those Africans are Sambos and coons. A lot of them are Sambos and coons. They roll out the red carpet for the Caucasians that come over there and kiss their ass immediately. The Caucasians and the Asians who are sitting over there in control of their countries, but yet you want to go to Africa. You already know you're going to be at the bottom when you go there too. They're not uplifting you. You're not going to just be able to walk around just because your skin is dark. No. It's not how it go. They want to dominate our people wherever they are. They want to dominate so-called black people wherever they are. Caucasian, Asian, wherever you are, they want to dominate you. And that's apparent there. And they always come as immigrants into your country. But you can't go to China doing that. You can't go to parts of Europe and do that and do what you want to do there. But they can come into your countries. And when I say our country and our continent, count America as well, and do whatever they want. And y'all let them do that. So for our people to be talking about, let's go to Africa, let's go back to the motherland. First of all, Africa's not our motherland. That whole out of Africa theory is the brainchild of racist Charles Darwin. And then later a guy by the name of Francis Galton, I think his name was, and then there was another, then they picked it up from your Melville Herkovitz and then your guys, Franz Boas. Those people are the fathers of pan-africanism. They taught people like W.E.B. Du Bois and Booker T. Washington. And they basically got these guys to go out here and teach the so-called educated black people in these colleges that we really come from Africa and that we really are, you know, inferior to white people, and that because we African, our brains are smaller, all this phrenology crap, basically a whole lot of racist crap they made up and some pseudo fake science stuff that y'all sit up here and take these Caucasians who spew this garbage. Because, and notice in all of their scientific findings, we found out we are the smartest people. It always comes out, we found that we're actually the smartest people. We found that we're the most advanced people. We found this out, right? Why do their research always shows that? Never the truth. Never the truth. Which is why we have to stop seeking validation from these people. It's nothing like drinking water out of a glass. Preserves the water a lot better. So we're not going to a place where we never been, where our origins and our roots are not. Our origins and roots are not in Africa. Our origins and roots are here in the Americas. From South America to Central America to Yucatan, all the way into North America. We are the first people to step foot into North America, from the South and Central America into the Yucatan and into America. We're the first people to inhabit the Americas. We didn't come from Africa. We didn't come from no place else. We did ascend into the Americas, but that's a whole nother topic for another time. That's too deep to get into right now. All right. Why do Black Americans believe they come from Africa? You know, the only reason why so-called Black people believe they come from Africa, I'm going to just keep it all the way 100. The only reason Black people believe that is because white people said it. That's it. That's all. Because white people said it. Don't believe all that stuff. Oh, well, they presented proof and they showed Brother C in the geological finding, in the scientific findings of this and the bone fragments and this, that. Listen. Black people don't care nothing about that. All they care about is that white people said something. That's still that slave mentality in the minds of so-called Black people. You see, because you were educated by these immigrants. You were educated by immigrants who were trying to establish themselves in America. I don't want to say educated by your slave master, because all white people were not slave masters. All so-called Black people were not slaves. The mass majority of our people were not slaves. Okay? Don't believe that nonsense about millions of Black people. No. What they call slavery was a lot of that was indentured servitude. People was trying to work to get money for land and just basically trying to make a life, and on short-term contracts and things like that. So they called that slavery. A lot of it wasn't slavery. A lot of it was indentured servitude. You had certain people that was just straight up slaves and people that was forced to stay on plantations by gunpoint. So you had that. But all the nonsense about everybody was a slave, that's not true. That's not true. And that's another reason why they don't want to delve too much into the slave. So the slave story, or that all Black people in America came from Africa and from some African slave ships and Holocaust, and all this African Holocaust, is a load of BS. That's a load of BS. That's really a form of mental programming, false mental programming that was basically put upon our people, so-called Black people, so that we would always have this inferiority complex with white people. We always look at them as masters, because whenever they basically want you to think white people superior, Black people inferior. That was the whole point of teaching about the so-called slave ships, and that we came over here on slave ships. We didn't come over on those slave ships. They're the only ones that came over on indentured servitude or slave ships. Caucasian people came over here that way. And they worked and was paid for their labor. Okay, as indentured servants. All right. But that's the only reason why. It's nothing deep. It's nothing scientific. It's nothing, it's just white people said it. And because white people, and that time people was calling themselves Dr. this and Dr. that, Dr. Charles Darwin and all these other people. These are just a bunch of people, a bunch of racist ass white people who gave themselves fake titles, gave themselves this illustrious academic post to stand on. And they said, we're the doctors now. We're going to decide how people are educated. We're going to decide who's intelligent and who's dumb, who's not, who's smart and who's dumb. We're going to decide all that. And it's going to be based on what we determine, you know, who's educated and who's not. You have to go by our dichotomy, by what we say. So then anybody could do that. Nuben Menkarayzz could set himself up and say, I'm Dr. Nuben Menkarayzz, and this is the curriculum I want everybody to follow. And if you don't pass or follow this curriculum, then you don't. They set themselves up as academic authoritarians over the world. And that was meant to be a master-slave connection. With themselves at the top as the academic masters, and everybody else at the bottom, especially so-called black people, looking up to them as, you know, some academic gods or something like that. So again, when you go to school and when you just seen white people as your teachers, you saw white teachers teaching you this. You saw white professors in college teaching you this. That's nothing but programming. That whole thing, the whole educational system in this country is set to program people with lies. That Christopher Columbus discovered America, that black people came over here on slave ships, that there was just some Mongoloid Indians running around here, some Asian looking Indians running around. That's a load of BS, man. Bunch of lies. You could clearly debunk that, and there's still records about that. They showed our people before in the early 1500s, 1400s. They showed our people. When they said Indian, they was talking about our people. They were talking about so-called black people here in America. But because they wanted us to disconnect from our American indigenous heritage and start calling ourselves Africans and Negroes and colored and all this other nonsense, that's when our culture and our history started being erased. I told you about the paper erasure, how they erased us on paper. I'm pretty sure I got some questions and comments. Pretty sure I got questions and comments. I was trying to look for my wives to take, because I'm trying not to look at I'm trying to answer all these questions and get through. But I guess one of my wives is watching for the questions, comments, and something. Yeah. They claim the white man is a liar, except for when he calls us African. Exactly. Because that's the only reason they believe. Trust me, that's the only reason people like Umar Johnson, all those people believe we African. Now, now question. Again, how ridiculous is that? You're supposed to be Pan-African, and Pan-Africanism is supposed to be black inspired and, you know, black this and black that. But it wasn't a so-called black man who said we African. That don't sound strange to y'all? The whole out of Africa theory come from a white man. So your whole Pan-African, the foundation of Pan-Africanism comes from white people. Charles Darwin, Melville Herkovitz, Franz Boas. These are your fathers of the out of Africa theory, and that is the foundation of which Pan-African is built on. Without those guys, nobody would be sitting up here talking about they African now. You do know that. If it wasn't for Charles Darwin, Melville Herkovitz, Franz Boas, all Caucasians, right? If it wasn't for these white males, nobody would be sitting up here talking about we African now. That didn't come from the minds of so-called black people. So Umar Johnson, Dr. James Smalls, all you guys, all that African nonsense that y'all basing y'all stuff on and calling yourselves doctors, doctor this, doctor that. Who set up the curriculums for you to even call yourselves doctors? Who set up the curriculum where you could get a degree in African American studies? White people. Caucasian males, white boys. They're the ones that set up this whole African thing, African studies thing. They did. That didn't come from those so-called black people. So that should be a big red flag. Miss me with the Marcus Garvey stuff. Oh, Garvey came over here and was talking Pan-Africanism. So what? That was still around the time of Darwin with his theory of out of Africa theory. That's still around the time of Francis Galton. It was before Garvey. So all that whole African thing, when we was coming into the 20th century, that was already in the air of us being African. But it wasn't our people saying that. It was just our people following what Caucasians said. These fake pseudo-intellectual, pseudo-scientific racist Caucasians. And that's just what they are. Charles Darwin, Melville, Herkovitz in France, Boaz, they passed that garbage on to W.E.B. Du Bois, a sellout and a suspected sodomite, allegedly, but not really too allegedly, to follow this garbage. Okay. So no African, not African. Let the white man, let the white man be African. And they also believe, I told you, they also believe that white people are African too. They all life started in Africa. So I mean, white people are African too. So, hey, Omar, answer. I'd love you to answer that. Are white people African? And does all life start in Africa? So white people are African too. Next question. Are black people really discriminated against because of their color? No. They're discriminated against because of their indigenous status here in America. I said that. I'll repeat and reiterate. We are discriminated against because of our indigenous status here in America, because we are the only indigenous people here. We're the only people that's indigenous to this land. That's why we're discriminated against. All right? Now, it has nothing to do with skin color. It has nothing to do with hair texture, skin color. Skin color, dark skin color, and woolly texture is ethnic. It is indigenous to America. And this is why Caucasians want to erase that. That's why they make the so-called black woman, the attractive American indigenous woman, falsely being called a black woman, falsely being called African American, like we all falsely being called African Americans. They make her put a damn blonde wig on her head, or Caucasian woman's wig on her head, because if she doesn't do that, if she's in corporate America, or if she's going to be in the entertainment industry or out in front of a camera, they make her put on these white women wigs in order to be out, because they don't want the face. They don't want the face of America to be the real face of America. Meaning, they don't want the face of America to be woolly hair, natural hair, braids. Hell, if they could get you to lighten your skin up, which they do try to get you to lighten your skin up, you'd be even lighter. But the one thing they insist on, you got to have straight hair. You see, because they don't want you to have your indigenous hair. Afros and braids, or naturals and braids, are indigenous to America. They don't want that. They don't want to be reminded of what America truly is. And that is the home of the copper-colored races. Falsely being called black, falsely being called Negro, falsely being called African Americans. Right? Why are police, hold on, wait a minute. What is the U.S. policy when it comes to dealing with black people? What is the U.S. policy? Deprive them of things. Deprive them of resources, ignore their wants, ignore their needs, right? Remember that I told you that law that, I'm not going to say it's a law, but it's a policy they have. Might as well just call it policy, because remember I said there's no laws here in America. There's policies in America. There's a difference between policy and law, all right? Law can only be given by lawful people who follow a culture, a tradition. That's who gives laws. That is decided by the people. Okay? We don't got nothing to do with these policies that are passed in this government. You have nothing to do with that. You have no say where your money goes. You have no say over where your money, your money could go to them giving it to Ukrainians. Your money go to giving it to Mexicans crossing the border, who they calling dreamers. Your money going to damn fake Indians, pretendians, these Mongoloids and these Caucasians living on reservations. That's where my tax money's going. That's where your tax money's going. You got no say over that. But then you got homeless black people in the streets, people who are indigenous to this land, people who are citizens or indigenous in this country, and they can't get no help because they busy giving help to Mexicans who crossing the damn border, giving help to Ukrainians and all whoever else they giving free money to. But we can't get none of our own money back. You see, when people talk about, reparations and paying why I got to pay reparations, you do know, they say, that's, the government money. That's government money. That's our tax money. Doesn't the government run on our tax money? So all I'm asking for is my money back. We want to pay ourselves reparations. We really asking for our money to come back because we the biggest consumers here in this country. So just like we don't have no say over where our money goes. The same way you so-called white people will racist. I don't think black people should have reparations. Why not? This was our country before y'all came here. America was our country before you came here. Okay, you could look that right up. What people they declared as black people? That's something when you redact or you wipe out a people. You wipe out their culture, you wipe out their heritage, and you just call them they black. You take everything from them. You strip them of everything, the land, the culture, the history, to where we was forced to be called Negroes, forced to be declared as Negroes and colored people and have our American, indigenous, or Indian status taken from us. Forced to have our culture stripped from us and not practice our American indigenous ways. Now, people say, I'm not, and having land taken away from us, land that we lived on, worked on, and that we built houses on and did things for was taken away from us. Black Wall Street wasn't the only time that happened. That's been happening since America was started. Land being taken away from us, confiscated for BS to give to white people, right? Using us to get the land going, working the land as we did. And then we get the land going because they didn't know how to work the land. Caucasians, they came here, the immigrants, they didn't know how to work the land. We taught them how to work the land. Then after you work the land, you share crop on the land, you get the land going. They learn from you. Then they turn around and the nigga get out and get off my land. That's what happened. All the treaties that were broken with the American indigenous people was the treaties broken with us. Not with the Mongoloid Indians, because they didn't even believe in owning land. So they ain't even talking to them. That's just a rewriting of history. But anyway, the policy is to neglect the indigenous people, so-called black people. Do nothing for them. Just act like, just play the game like they still do today. I understand, like these Democrats tell you, I understand your problems, your concerns. Yeah, we'll take up a study on it, like H.R. 40, that bullshit study, H.R. 40 for the reparations. They don't never plan on giving you no reparations. That's your money. All you asking for is your money back. You can't get your money back. See, because to admit that would be to admit that they did something wrong. They'll never admit that they did nothing wrong. You see? But they'll say that to all the other immigrants. Because, see, this country was set up for immigrants to grant them status of a special status. We not immigrants. That's why we don't get the status. Has, again, nothing to do with your skin color. You got to wake up. Right? So, benign neglect is the name of that. Benign neglect is the name of that policy that this country has, the U.S. corporation has when it comes to dealing with the indigenous people, so-called black people, the indigenous people. Benign neglect, meaning that just neglect these niggas. Leave them in the hoods, give them nothing, let them just scrounge for whatever they can get and whatever. That's it. That's why y'all messed up out here. That's why you can't get no help. You can't get no nothing. Benign neglect. They prioritizing foreigners over us. They prioritizing foreigners over us. People that don't even pay taxes. Our tax money is going for these people. But our people are in the damn street starving. This is sick. Don't tell me that bullshit about your vote count. Your vote don't count for nothing because you don't decide where your money go. You don't decide who we supposed to. If our money goes into the government and the police and all these so-called politicians and stuff are supposed to be working for us, then how come we don't have no say in who's becoming a police officer, who gets fired? Because as soon as they commit some sort of crime, like these police officers are doing all over the place, as soon as they commit some kind of crime, there should be a civilian complaint review, a real civilian board, whereas we have the power to fire police, charge them, have them locked up. The civilians, the people that pay their salaries. How the hell do they have a private union and they got to go to their unions and they could just do whatever they want to do? This is a private group. No, it's not supposed to be private. If it's private, then just say that and then stop asking us for tax money to support these people. Let the private sector support the police. Since they only here to do their bidding of the private sector, Why we have to pay taxes to support the police if we can't decide whether they get fired, who gets hired? We have nothing to do with that. Their names should be submitted to everybody in those areas who are going to be in that section. They record, they psychological record, everything, so we know who's walking around us with dangerous weapons, carrying guns. That's what you do in a real society of democracy. There's no democracy here. There's a dictatorship here for acting like it's a democracy. I got off on the political thing for a second. Not that I'm even into politics, but I'll show you the hypocrisy it is. This ain't no damn democracy. This is corporations and policies in place. Why? It brings me back to the police. Why are police attacking black people more frequently now? You look at this show that I watch a lot called Indisputable Truth, and you see a whole lot of attacks that are being reported on where these Caucasian officers, which Tariq Nasheed referred to as race soldiers, out here attacking black people, the indigenous people. That's part of the policy. The man missed me with all that old police training and we need some sympathy training. Look, they hire these people to do what they do. They hire these people to terrorize the indigenous people, the so-called black people. They're hired to do that. They're not here to do anything else. They are not about, that's part of the policy of the corporation. The policy officers are here to enforce policy on the indigenous people, to lock up the indigenous people, to kill the indigenous people. That has been their mindset, their policy since this corporation started. You see, lock up, kill, maim the indigenous people because they stand in the way of these people calling themselves Americans. If they had it where they'd kill every so-called black person in this country. They would kill every so-called black person in this country or wipe them away or make them go someplace else so America could be a white country. Because that's what they really want. They want America to be a white country with the immigrants on the bottom and the Caucasians on the top. They want America to be a white country. Problem with that is when America was trying to make America a white country, it failed. So they needed the indigenous people to help them. They needed the indigenous so-called black people to help them farm the land, grow on the land, because that's where the economy of America came from the land, from the soil. You see, that's the economy of this. That's where your cotton comes from. That's where your food, your tobacco, your cotton, the things people need, the things where it's a demand for. It comes from these lands here. The lands are here in America. And they need all people to not just pick the cotton, not just pick the tobacco, but grow it. To grow it. This is an agrarian society. Caucasians didn't come from an agrarian society. They needed the indigenous people to help them grow the stuff to make this profitable for them. Because even right now, a lot of these white farmers they suffering right now. A lot of them, their land's getting dried out and everything. It's a bad time for farmers. Right? That's why they pushing a lot of these GMOs and Monsanto. But that's another thing. Things are screwed up. Yeah, but the whole thing, why you seeing this happening right now with the attacks on so-called black people, because I really think it's just a way to wake our people up, wake up some of our people. You know, a lot of our people are not going to wake up, so you have to have some sacrifices in order for the people to be woken up to things. You have to have some sacrifices. Notice the term woke is being used by these Caucasians. Why they saying that is because they know it would come a time where people would start to wake up, especially our people, and they're trying to fight against that. They felt like they could just do what they could continue to do in the darkness, and now it's coming to light. Everything, all foul things come to light, and this society is foul. The people that run this society is foul. Okay? These are foul and demonic and degenerates who run this society. Don't you dare refer to them as white supremacists. Refer to them as what they are, white degenerates. The ones who run this society, the scum. The scum. The corporate elites behind the scenes that run the policies of this country, that employ the policy officers, aka police officers, the racist immigrants who come here into this country and claim this country as their own. Colonization is the same thing as gentrification. It's all the same thing. And the whole thing is to put their foot in the indigenous people's asses and keep them down. And that's why you have black people at the bottom, because we are the indigenous people. Stop with this African thing. We're not African. Like I told you, if we were really African, we wouldn't have these problems. If we was African, we would be treated like another indigenous class, another immigrant class. Excuse me. We would be treated as an immigrant class if we were really African. Don't let these Negroes fool you. Don't let clowns like Umar Johnson fool you with this Pan-African garbage. All right. Was Pan-Africanism created by so-called white supremacy? Yeah, it was. Like I said, if it wasn't for Charles Darwin, if it wasn't for Melville Herkovitz, if it wasn't for France Boas, there'd be no ground for Umar Johnson and all these Pan-Africans to stand on. They created that study of African American studies. They created that. That was something created by Caucasian. That didn't come from so-called black people. So again, how you want to tell me something about my history and where I come from, and that's straight out of a textbook written by some Caucasian? How you gonna do that? No, we're not falling for that. And the people that's promoting, I told you, those are boule coons. The ones who promoting Pan-Africanism, they boule coons. They actors. All these Pan-Africans, all these people that still pushing, we black and we got black skin and we from Africa and we came on slave ships and we need to go back to Africa. Those are boule coons. And notice the boule coons, they never go to Africa. They never live in Africa. They never take no African names on, starting with Marcus Garvey, Umar Johnson, all the rest of these people who got American names or white names, yet claiming Africanism. Red flag. Why is it important to acknowledge our American indigenous roots and cut ties with the false African identity? It's important because if we let people punk us out of we just rediscovering, basically, we on a mass number of our people are rediscovering their American indigenous roots. We're rediscovering our American indigenous roots. And because we're doing that, we are getting in alignment, getting in contact with our ancestors and with our ascendants. Because as much as people talk about our ancestors, we don't have no African ancestors. We got American ancestors and we got American ascendants, meaning those who will come after us, our children. And then they must know this, because this is how you strengthen the roots of our people. This is how you strengthen heritage and culture and things like that, when people know who they are. Because when people don't know who they are, they have no real reason for living. When people don't know who they are. Right? They have no reason for living when they don't know who they are. So that's why you got black people walking around here like zombies talking about, yeah, I'm going to go back to Africa. Oh, I'm going to be an African. I'm going to go back to Africa. Or I'm going to be a Muslim. Or I'm going to be an Israelite. No. It has nothing to do with us. We tried on everything here in this country instead of what we really are, which is the American indigenous people. When I did the broadcast last time, you see me with the feathered head crown on. I showed you how natural that looked on me, because that's us. That's us. When we let some $5 pretendians, we let some damn mongoloids who crossed the Bering Strait, some Johnny-come-latelys who came into America, take on our culture and our heritage. We go back to the Olmecs, we go back to the Aztec, we go back to the Inca, the Mayan, and the all the North American Indian tribes that came here that they don't even mention. You know, the uncivilized tribe, what they call the savage Indians, because the white man only accepted certain people as civilized. You know, the ones who didn't fight them back, the ones who let them do whatever they want, because they consider those people to be civilized. If you let us do what we want to you, you're civilized. If you fight us back, you're a savage. That's why they called us savages. That's why they hate us to this day. Because our people did fight back a lot. A lot of our people refused to be slaves, because they was out here with gunpoint trying to catch slaves. They don't talk about that. They was out here while our people was indigenous, out here living in the land, especially the Mississippians. They don't talk about the Mississippians, the Indians, the indigenous people. Our people was in Mississippi before the white people came there, who had the land out there. And when they came out there, hey, it was wholesale slaughter. They had guns, everything else, taking land and stuff like that, you know, pushing our people off the lands. Right? And they had black people helping them. They did have that. It was black people helping them. It was other indigenous and the Mongoloids helping them. It wasn't just, oh, you know, a few of them. Nah. They always had help. That's why I say be mindful of these pan-Africanists, because these pan-Africanists are traitors and turncoats to our people. So we have to remember our American indigenous heritage, our American indigenous status here. And like I said, we're not sitting up here trying to get no damn membership in some mongoloid club, because they are not real indigenous anyway. We're not trying to get no black membership card in the fake Indian tribes. The real indigenous tribes are going to be, or the real indigenous nation is going to be reformed by our people. The hell with them. Let them do what they want to do. As far as I'm concerned, they with the beast, man. They with the beast. All right. Because if we don't acknowledge it, if we don't acknowledge our, I'm about to wrap this up soon. We got a few more questions. If we don't acknowledge our American indigenous status, it'll be buried forever, man. Like I said, shout out to people like Dane Calloway. Shout out to Sister Enra Vanzetta. Mentangelus. Shout out Ethnic American Channel. Shout out to Karemio and all the people that's keeping this going. You see, about our American indigenous history and who we are. See, it's nothing special to sit up here. You know how we always sit up and say, yeah, I got Indian in my family. I got Indian in my family. How many black people you done heard sit over the years? I got Indian in my family. I got Indian. Newsflash. If you was born in America and you didn't come from Africa, directly from Africa, you was born in America, your family go back past slavery. If you West Indian, if you from the islands, whatever the case is, you were there in Mexico, all that, then you are a descendant of the Olmecs, the Aztec, the Inca, the Mayan. You are indigenous to this land. So there is no, oh, you know, I got Indian in my family. Every damn body that was here in the Americas is Indian. Every black person who did not come off of African slavery, who could trace their heritage back to past slavery, you are American Indians or American indigenous. The Indians, the American Indians. That's who we are. So stop with this acting like that's a special thing. It's really not. Everybody who was black, whose family been here before slavery and whatnot, they American indigenous people. Your family members can't tell you a damn thing about no Africa. They can't. Ain't nobody gonna beat you enough to make you forget something. What they did kill our people and fight for was us saying that we was American Indians, that we Indians. That's what they killed our people for. That's what they pulled up and put guns in our face. They was doing that in the late 1800s, going into the and going from the 19th century going into the 20th century, showing up at our doors, these so-called census takers. A lot of them had guns on them, had if you didn't put down that you was a Negro, or you didn't say that you was a colored person, you know, the reclassification, then they would either lock you up in jail, they might come kill you at night. Because it was a big thing on where they was hating the American Indians in this country. Remember when they vilified the American Indians? Remember that they showed you the cowboys and the Indians, they vilified the Indians? Why do you think they vilified the Indians? It's not because of those mongoloid ones with the straight hair. Those are good Indians. Those are the red Indians are the good Indians because they helped them against our people, the real Indians. The mongoloids were the good Indians. You see, they were your Uncle Coon, they were your Uncle Tom Indians. The Asians, because they had their straight hair in common with the white man. You see, they come from that same. And if you look on the damn reservation, or as y'all say, the res, you see a bunch of Caucasians on the res. How is there a bunch of Caucasians on the res since the white man, y'all claim y'all hate the white man so much for taking y'all land and doing y'all dirty? Then why a bunch of white boys live on the res? Screwing your so-called Indian princesses, whatever. Y'all all the same people, man. As far as I'm concerned. And those Mongoloid Indians racist as hell against our people too, and the Latinos. When we start claiming our American indigenous status, oh, y'all African, y'all black, y'all need to stop trying to be because you're ashamed to be black, not knowing that these are titles that was made up by the white man. Y'all need to stop claiming native. We ain't claiming native. We claim indigenous. Y'all claim native. The white people was the first ones to claim natives. And now y'all piggybacking off of them. They was putting on feathers in their hair when they came over here and paint images of themselves with feathers in their head and whatnot. They was already trying to become the people. And when you try to become a people, that means you're going to push out the real people when the fake people come. And that's what you see today. All right. Why is black male masculinity becoming a thing of the past? Listen, right now, and I've been saying this, there is a push. There is a push to emasculate the so-called black man in America. Why is that? To make him effeminate, to make him into a homosexual or someone with effeminate tendencies. Why is that? Because they do not want our people to mass produce anymore. Because we're still putting out children. We're still putting out children, putting out seeds and, future progeny at a higher rate than anybody here. They don't want to say that. Our population is picking up. And I told you that's not part of the plan. They want America to be all the way white, all the way immigrant, all the way, immigrant status, white status. And they want the indigenous people's numbers down real super low. They want them to be a fringe group, or they want so-called black people out of America altogether. So the push for immigration. Do you notice also the push to stop? You don't hear, see, all this plays a part in pushing our people out of the way. People like your Fat Joe and them claiming that Latinos started hip hop 50-50 with black people. You don't hear no R&B music no more. You don't hear no blues. You don't really hear no real music coming from our people. All you hear is this garbage ass trap music. Because this is really a way of erasing our people from the American landscape, from the American popular culture. Because, like I said, we are really the culture of America. So-called black people, through our music, through our food, through our expression, our slang, we're the real culture of America, not white people. Not white people at all. Not Asians, not Latinos. They are not the culture of America. We are. You can't name me a bunch of people, popular artists. They got to force people like Bruno Mars, and he's not even all the way, whatever he's supposed to be, Latino, whatever. Or they got to force people to accept these fake artists and whatnot. They're trying to push a fake music and pop culture on the people to replace us. See, but our pop culture, our music, our things that we do is organic. We come up with rap music, hip hop, R&B, jazz, blues. That's all our music. Rock music, rock and roll, all our music. That is the foundation of a culture. Music, food. You see, that's the foundation of a culture. We are the American culture. American indigenous people, bronze, copper colored people, we are the American culture. Everybody follows us. Even the people in Africa follow us. This clown A.R.C came up here talking about, black people ain't got no culture. Black people this, but here it is. He's a tribal African. Yeah, he brought his black ass over from Africa. And he set up here and did nothing but copy so-called American indigenous people, so-called black people here in America, American indigenous people. He made his living off of us. He made his connections through us. And then he come over here talking shit. He couldn't have did none of that stuff he did over in Senegal. He's over here in America talking shit about us. But yet y'all want to go over there to where he from. Really? Really? Why don't he go back to Senegal? Why don't he go over there and see if he popping over there and say, don't never buy nothing from A.R.C. Don't buy none of his music. Don't buy no Fat Joe music. Don't buy no Busta Rhymes music. If they feel that way about American indigenous people and we ain't got no culture, then goddamn it, and Busta Rhymes, you said the same thing. You West Indian. But yet you just made a new record with Big Daddy Kane and the guy Conway the Machine. You rapping over James Brown music. James Brown is not West Indian. James Brown is American indigenous North American. What you rapping over James Brown music for? Why you rapping? Rapping is American indigenous music form. Why you using American indigenous music to rhyme over? Go rhyme over some goddamn Jamaican music. If you feel that way. We need to stop supporting these people that's about tearing us down, man. Y'all gave money to this goddamn school for Umar Johnson to teach pan-africanism. And here we are, American indigenous people here in the Americas, and we losing our identity more. And you got this nigga over here collecting money for some African school, yet this nigga don't go over there to Africa and promote Africanism. We don't need that garbage over here. We don't need nobody convincing us of a lie because your Caucasian bosses told you to. Push that to us. Boule coons. You too, Coon Ma. Sorry, I get a little, So anyway, you see a lot of these guys with the pink on. A lot of these guys with this pink shit on. These guys with the pink jackets, pink suits. Be careful of all these pink panthers out here. These niggas that's wearing this pink. Be careful. I got one more thing. We about to wrap it up. Be careful of all these niggas wearing this pink. They with the beast, man. They with the so-called white men. They part of that plan to effeminize black men here in the society, the so-called black men. Pink is a female color. It has been and always will be. You don't see no white boys in no pink. You see, because here the thing is, you so-called black males, you'll take a bag. A lot of you, they pushing homosexual nonsense on our people. You'll take a bag just to sit up here and push homosexuality and the effeminization of black men. Then who gets your woman? After the men are effeminized, who gets your women? Oh, the white man? The Asian man get your black women? Right. That's the plan. To stop you from mass producing, meaning making more children. Because they don't want the indigenous to have children. You better be mindful and be careful of your children in these hospitals. You so-called black people here complaining about, hey, are we having babies and our babies is dying in the hospital? We're giving abortion. Well, who you think started that program? That's nothing but aimed at wiping out the indigenous people of America. From your Margaret Sangers and all these demons, that's nothing but wiping out the indigenous people here in America. Genocide. And a lot of you so-called blacks, you got on board with the black church was on board with the genocide of our people. Because Margaret Sanger and them went right to the black church. And them Sambo-ass boule coons in the church, they was with it. So I look at all these pan-Africans, and y'all know different, man. Anything that work against our people and the truth of who we are as American indigenous people, anybody tell us that we black and that we African, miss me with that. Miss us all with that, the intelligent ones of our people. You ignorant people that want to believe that you still want to believe in Esau's fables. Yeah, go ahead, man. And last point I'm going to make before we close it out. How black people are conned into chasing basic things and people in life. I did a broadcast on this. And I want y'all to think about this because we seem to put everything from money to material things to people over that which is really important in our lives. See, money comes and goes. People come and go. Places, we come and go to those places. But the thing that remains is culture, community, and collectivism. The 3 C's, culture, community, and collectivism. We have to have those 3 in place. As a people, we have to know who we are. We have to become a community again so that we can go forward as a people. We are the American indigenous people, and we must build a community around that, around us as the American indigenous. We must build a community around that. We can't build no community around pan-Africanism or blackness because that's nothing. That is nothing. That is nothing. As Tariq Nasheed said, that's a nothing burger. I don't like that term. I'm just being funny. That's a nothing burger. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to have my people put in the link of this video, the bottom link, the American Republic. Those of you who acknowledge what I'm saying to be real and think that we definitely there's a need for an American indigenous community, that we need our own community, like the Italians got their community, like the Irish, the Jews, everybody got their own community. We definitely need our own community. There is no black community. We're going to cut that bullshit out right now. There is no black community. Okay, there's no black community. There's no African-American community. We're going to cut that BS out right now. Okay, you got a bunch of people who are acting as individuals. There's no real representation amongst our people. There's no real direction. There's no trajectory, no destination on where our people are going right now as the so-called black community or African-American community. There's no such thing as those communities. That don't exist. That's just a bunch of made up nonsense. And you got a bunch of poverty pimps and boule coon sambos who have been elected as head of the so-called black community, who so-called speaking for the black community. There's no black community. So what we need is an American indigenous community here where we start to look out for ourselves and our own kind, the intelligent ones of our people who have went past the whole nonsense of us being black people and Negroes and can actually see what I see every day, which is beautiful copper-colored people of all shades, all, you know, all hues and shades, copper-colored, carbon-based people who are of a higher standard, of a higher esteem. And we need to have a community based on that. So go in the link below. I'm going to have it put down here in this video. And join the American Republic. Go to the American Republic, the link for the American Republic worldwide. Join the American Republic so that we can be a community again. And that's it. I'm going to close out in the name of Amen, by the power of Amen. In Amen we trust, in Amen we think, and in Amen we continue forward forever. Subscribe to my High and Mighty Talks channel right here. Subscribe to the Ethnic American channel with Sister Enra Venzetta. Subscribe to my MENTELLECT Patreon. I got stuff on MENTELLECT Patreon, raw and uncut stuff. I can't really get raw and uncut like I want to and say the things because YouTube loves the flag. And, you know, they got people up here. You got people up here doing the most degenerate things on YouTube. But what I'm saying is flag worthy. What I'm saying, the truth about my people, that's worthy to be flagged, and that's hate speech. Me speaking the truth is hate speech. But these people do all kinds of degenerate things on YouTube. That's okay, but whatever. You know, it's not my platform, but we're going to have our own platform soon any damn way. So, again, that's all. And with that, check me out tonight at 10:30. I'm doing MENTELLECT Radio. Check out MENTELLECT Radio. Calling number is, what's the calling number? 319-527-6028. Check out MENTELLECT Radio tonight on Blog Talk. And pretty much that's it. Sorry if I didn't get your question, and my wife, she didn't have the patience enough to sit and take your questions, so I can't read all that stuff. But anyway, good night.